Hello everyone, and welcome. Today we journey back in time to explore the incredible story behind the world's most beloved hymn. It is a song that has been sung in churches, at funerals, and during great moments of social change. But the man who wrote it once lived a life far from grace. John Newton described himself as a wretch, a word that carried a heavy weight in his time. His life is a testament to the power of transformation. Our story begins in 1725 in the Wapping district of London. John was born into a world of seafaring and strict moral codes. His mother Elizabeth was a devout woman. She spent countless hours teaching John the scriptures, hoping he would one day enter the ministry. The seeds of faith were sown deep in his heart, even if they would lie dormant for many years to come. But tragedy struck just before John's 7th birthday. His mother died of tuberculosis, leaving him with a father he barely knew. His father, a strict merchant captain, took John to sea at the age of 11. The warmth of his mother's faith was replaced by the harsh reality of life at sea. John grew into a rebellious young man. He was known for his sharp tongue, his blasphemy, and his utter disregard for authority. In 1743, at the age of 18, Newton was forced into service with the Royal Navy aboard the HMS Harwich. His time in the Navy was miserable. He deserted, was captured, and was publicly flogged in front of the entire crew. Desperate to be rid of him, the Navy exchanged Newton for a sailor from a merchant ship bound for West Africa. This was his entry into the slave trade. He arrived in Sierra Leone, but his situation only worsened. He became a servant of slaves, working for a white slave trader named Amos Clow. Clow's wife, an African princess, mistreated John, keeping him in rags and starving him. He was a literal outcast on the African coast. He would later describe this as his lowest point, a time when he was once an infidel and libertine, a servant of slaves in Africa. In 1748, a captain sent by John's father arrived to rescue him. Newton boarded the Greyhound for the long journey back to England. The voyage was uneventful at first, but it would soon become the most significant journey of his entire life. On March 10, 1748, a massive storm battered the ship off the coast of Ireland. The Greyhound was taking on water, and its side was torn away. The situation was dire. The crew worked day and night to keep the ship afloat, but the sea seemed determined to swallow them whole. Newton was tasked with working the pumps in the dark, flooding hold. As the hours passed, his strength and his hope began to fail. In a moment of pure desperation, he cried out, "If this will not do, the Lord have mercy upon us." He was startled by his own words. He spent the next 11 hours tied to the helm, steering through the dark. He survived the night, and something in him began to shift. The ship eventually reached safety in Lough Swilly, Ireland. Newton was alive, and he began to wonder if his mother's God had heard his cry. Newton didn't become a saint overnight. He called it a gradual conversion. He spent the next 6 years continuing to work in the slave trade. He served as first mate and then captain of 3 slave ships, still viewing the trade as a creditable way of life at the time. Yet he began to study the Bible and hold Sunday services for his crew. The grace he had felt during the storm was slowly working on his heart. A sudden stroke in 1754 ended Newton's seafaring career. It was a forced exit that would lead him to his true calling. He spent years studying Greek, Hebrew, and theology. He was initially rejected by the Church of England, who found his background suspicious. But his persistence paid off. In 1764, at the age of 39, John Newton was finally ordained and became the curate of the small parish of Olney. In Olney, Newton served a congregation of largely uneducated lacemakers. He wanted to write hymns they could understand and relate to. He formed a deep friendship with the poet William Cowper, who suffered from severe depression. Together, they wrote what would become the Olney Hymns. On New Year's Day, 1773, Newton prepared a sermon based on 1 Chronicles 17. He wrote a poem to accompany it, originally titled Faith's Review and Expectation. The words were his own spiritual autobiography in verse. "Amazing grace, oh, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me." He wrote of his past, "I once was lost," his present, "'Tis grace has brought me safe thus far," and his future, "And grace will lead me home." It wasn't until 1835 that the lyrics were paired with the melody New Britain, creating the anthem we know today. In his later years in London, Newton became a fierce abolitionist. He mentored a young William Wilberforce, urging him to use his political power for God. Newton's pamphlet, Thoughts Upon the African Slave Trade, provided a first-hand account of the horrors he had witnessed and participated in. He lived just long enough to see the Slave Trade Act pass in 1807, banning the trade across the British Empire. He died 9 months later. His epitaph, which he wrote himself, declares that he was preserved, restored, pardoned, and appointed to preach the faith he had long labored to destroy. John Newton's life is a powerful reminder that no one is beyond the reach of God's love and transformation. Grace truly is amazing. Thank you for joining us for this story of faith. May you also experience the sweetness of grace in your own life. God bless you all.